When Nay turned 50, she did not fall apart all at once. It happened slowly, the way damage usually does. A marriage of decades dissolved. A loss so deep it had no clean name for it. And on the outside, she held herself together the way most women her age have been taught to do. She went through the motions. She answered her phone. She said she was fine when people asked, which eventually they stopped doing. But there was one living thing in that house that never stopped asking. Butterscotch, a golden-coated dog of no particular breed and enormous emotional intelligence, did not accept the performance. She pressed herself against Nay's legs when Nay stood at the kitchen counter staring at nothing. She followed her from room to room with a quiet, unwavering focus. And what most people never stop to consider is that Butterscotch was not just being loyal. She was reading something most humans completely missed. Do you actually understand what your dog is detecting when you are broken? Most people assume their dog is simply affectionate, sweet-natured, a little clingy maybe. But the science behind what dogs like Butterscotch are actually doing in those moments is something most owners never get close to understanding. And if you have been telling yourself your dog is just a dog, you have been missing what is genuinely one of the most extraordinary things happening inside your own home. Let us talk about what is really going on. Because Nay's story is not unique. The names change, the losses change. But the dog who notices first, that part stays the same. 1. Your dog is not reading your mood. She is reading your chemistry. Research has documented that dogs can detect measurable shifts in human cortisol levels through scent alone. And cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, surges during grief, during trauma, during the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from holding yourself together past the point where you have anything left. Butterscotch's nose, somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive than a human's, was picking up changes in Nay's body chemistry that Nay herself had not consciously registered. It was not intuition. It was not magic. It was biology so precise that researchers have spent years trying to fully map it. Your dog knows your stress before your nervous system has finished processing it, and she responds because she has been built across thousands of years of evolution to respond to you. 2. The physical contact was not comfort, it was regulation. Studies measuring physiological responses during close contact between bonded dogs and their owners found something that most people never get told. Cortisol levels dropped in both directions simultaneously, not just in the dog seeking closeness, but in the human receiving it. Heart rate slows, breathing deepens. The nervous system, which in grief runs on a kind of constant low-level alarm, begins to quiet. Nay did not know she was being regulated. She thought she was just letting Butterscotch sleep pressed against her side because it felt slightly less terrible than the alternative. But what was actually happening, night after night in that house where everything had changed, was that two nervous systems were reaching toward equilibrium together. That is not sentiment. That is a documented biological process your dog initiates every time she chooses to stay close. 3. Butterscotch changed her position when the grief changed. Pay attention to where your dog places herself on the hard days versus the manageable ones, because that placement is not random. Dogs carry ancient pack wiring that never fully switched off, regardless of how domesticated they became. In a pack, members position themselves during sleep to cover vulnerable points, monitor entry, stand guard over those who needed protection most. When Butterscotch began sleeping pressed directly against Nay's back, it was not coincidence. She had assessed the situation the way her instincts demanded and taken up a post. A dog sleeping against your back is covering your blind side. She has decided you need watching over. She has decided that is her role. And every single night, without being asked and without expectation of anything in return, she showed up for it. 4. Every position Butterscotch chose was a sentence. There were nights she curled tight and contained near Nay's feet. There were nights she sprawled completely open, belly exposed, body loose in that posture that signals total emotional safety. And there were the hardest nights, the ones Nay does not talk about easily, when Butterscotch wedged herself with such deliberate closeness that there was no physical space left between them at all. Understand what that means. A dog exposing her belly has switched off every survival instinct she carries. A dog pressing in that completely is not clinging. She is not anxious. She is making a choice to eliminate all distance. And the message underneath every one of those positions was identical. I am here. I am not leaving. You are not alone in this. 5. Butterscotch rewrote her internal clock for Nay's grief schedule. Dogs are biologically wired for dawn and dusk. That is what thousands of years of evolution built them for. Their natural rhythm has no reason to align with a grieving 50-year-old woman who is not sleeping on any predictable schedule, who is up at 2 in the morning sitting in the kitchen not eating, who sleeps until 9 on the days the weight of everything makes getting up feel impossible. And yet Butterscotch adjusted. She stirred when Nay stirred. She settled when Nay eventually settled. She was present at 2 in the morning without complaint, without agenda, without asking for anything to be explained. This is not training. Researchers have documented that bonded dogs shift their activity patterns gradually to mirror their owner's routine, not because they are conditioned to, but because they have spent enough time paying attention to you that your rhythm became theirs. 6. She felt the relapse coming before Nay did. Have you ever watched a dog suddenly become extra attentive on a day that felt, at least on the surface, like any other day? Nay describes specific mornings when Butterscotch would not leave her side, would follow her into the bathroom, would sit pressed against her legs with a focus that felt different from ordinary affection. Those were not random days. They were the days before something broke through. Your dog is building a detailed internal map of your baseline every single night, sleeping beside you, tracking your resting heart rate, learning the rhythm of your breathing when you are genuinely at peace. So when something shifts, even before you have consciously felt the shift yourself, she knows. This is why dogs become intensely attentive during grief that the owner is trying to suppress. They are not guessing. They are responding to real, measurable changes in the person they have been studying with complete devotion. 7. And this is the part most people need to hear. What happens when a woman in Nay's situation stops letting the dog in? There are women who go through loss and begin closing things off, one by one, because everything that was once warm now feels dangerous. They stop letting friends in. They manage the kids from a distance. They become very organized, very functional, and completely unreachable. And sometimes the dog gets managed too, fed on schedule, walked, cared for, but not held, not let in. And what researchers studying canine attachment behavior have consistently found is that a dog who is blocked from giving care to a bonded owner does not understand why. She does not conclude that her presence is unwanted. She escalates. She presses harder. She sits closer than she is welcome. She waits, because her entire biological purpose in that relationship is to stay in contact with the person she has wired herself to. Pushing Butterscotch away was not something Nay could actually accomplish. Not completely. And maybe that was the point. 8. The science of why a dog's presence matters during major life rupture is something most people have never been told. Brian Hare, a cognitive scientist at Duke University, has spent his career documenting the depth of the human-canine bond and the unique ways dogs evolved specifically to connect with us. Not alongside us, not in spite of us, for us. Over 15,000 years, dogs developed social behaviors that exist nowhere else in the animal kingdom. Behaviors oriented entirely toward reading human emotional states and responding to them. Nay was not imagining that Butterscotch understood something. She was witnessing the product of 15,000 years of that specific evolution. A creature whose entire psychological architecture was shaped, generation by generation, around the need to be present for a human in exactly the way a human needs. 9. What a dog gives during loss is not replaceable by other sources of support, and the research is beginning to confirm this. Studies examining cortisol regulation in isolated and grieving adults found that close physical contact with a bonded animal produced measurable reductions in stress hormones that conversation and even human touch did not always replicate with the same consistency. There is something about the absence of language in it. Butterscotch never said the wrong thing. She never offered an opinion about the divorce. She never told Nay she should be further along in the process, or that everything happens for a reason, or that she seemed so strong. She just stayed, and that staying, measured biochemically, was actively keeping Nay's nervous system from a level of dysregulation that has real consequences for long-term health. D10. The women who find their way through enormous loss are rarely the ones who white-knuckled it alone. They are usually the ones who let something in, even when everything in them said close the door. Sometimes it was a person, sometimes it was a practice, and sometimes, more often than researchers expected when they started looking at this data, it was a dog. Not as a symbol, not as a comfort object, as a genuine biological anchor during a period when the nervous system has lost most of its external reference points. Butterscotch was Nay's reference point. She was the heartbeat that kept showing up, the warmth that pressed in when everything else had emptied out. And the ordinary, unspectacular daily insistence of that presence was doing something inside Nay's body that nothing else was reaching. 11. If you are a woman who has lost something enormous, a marriage, a parent, a version of yourself you built your entire identity around, you already know the particular silence that follows. How the world keeps moving, how people expect a timeline, how some losses do not have names that other people readily honor. Nay knew that silence. She lived inside it for longer than she tells most people. But Butterscotch did not care about timelines. She did not have a framework for what Nay's grief was supposed to look like at month 3 or month 7. She only had the information in front of her, and the information said this person is still in pain, and my place is here. And so that was where she stayed. 12. What most owners never stop to consider is that being chosen by a dog during the worst period of your life is not a small thing. It is not a nice thing that happened alongside the real story. It is the real story, or at least a significant part of it. Your dog does not choose to press herself against you out of habit. She does not stay beside you through the worst nights out of training or obligation. Research into dog attachment behavior has shown that the bonds dogs form with their primary human are among the most consistent, most physiologically real, and most responsive attachment relationships measured in any species. When Butterscotch chose Nay, night after night, in a house that no longer looked like the life Nay had planned, she was making a declaration that her entire biology was built to make. You are safe. You are not alone. I see what is happening to you, and I am not going anywhere. 13. Nay is doing better now. Not because the loss became smaller, but because something kept her tethered while she found her footing again. And she will tell you, when she talks about that period at all, that the one presence she never had to explain herself to was a golden-coated dog of no particular breed who somehow always knew which nights were the bad ones. Butterscotch did not fix anything. She could not. But she stayed through the unfixed parts. She pressed in when Nay pulled back. She showed up at 2 in the morning without being called. She read the chemistry, the posture, the breathing, the micro-expressions in a face shaped by grief, and she made a decision every single time. And that decision, repeated night after night without interruption, was the one that mattered most. If you have a dog who does this for you, who finds you before you have said a word, who stays past the point where staying is comfortable, understand what you are actually witnessing. That is not a pet being sweet. That is devotion operating at a biological level that science is only now beginning to fully measure. 14. And if you are somewhere in the middle of a loss right now, if you are in the silence that comes after something enormous ends, and there is a dog in your house watching you with that particular focus that only bonded dogs have, let her in. Let her press against you. Let her stay through the nights that have no good ending to them. Your nervous system needs a reference point. She is offering to be one. And she has been waiting with a patience and a steadiness that no human could sustain for you to stop managing the distance between you and just let her do what 15,000 years of evolution built her to do.